Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff McJunkin. I'll be talking today about learning faster with AI. So AI to help you, not AI to help you learn, not AI to do the things for you so you don't have to do the learning yourself. This is about investing in yourself. I have a bit of a pet peeve about long bios and intros. So this is my About Me slide. Hi, I'm Jeff. If I have your attention by the last slide, then we could talk a little bit more. All right. So we've known for a very, very, very long time how we can teach better, how we can learn more effectively. The issue is that it hasn't scaled. So I'm sure you've been through it before of getting somebody sending you a link to a video saying, oh, I think this would be great for you. You click on the link and it's a longer video. I'll put that right on the end of my to-do list and you'll never look at it. One of the approaches, like we had sampling broadly, delving efficiently, absorbing fully, 3 different sections of I want you to be able to sample everything remotely, plausibly interesting you come across and get a little teaser of, is this worth going further into? And for those things that you do think you should delve further into, how to do so efficiently, and that last little bit of absorbing as well. So I want you to sample, easily 100 times as much information as you currently are. And many of those things, you'll say, that was moderately interesting for maybe me another time, but not right now. And that's okay, right? I want you to have that breadth of experience to work with. So we've known that one-on-one mentoring works, that they call it the 2 sigma problem in terms of normally we have this conventional distribution of how people have learned in a given classroom. You got most people around the 70%, you have some below and some above. But with one-on-one mentoring, a quick study showed that, hey, wait, people move from like the 16th percentile, struggling to keep up, to near the head of the class in a couple of months. The thing I'd like you all to use AI for is your ongoing learning. We all have one-on-one mentors, whether you're using commercial models or local models, and we're not generally worried about hallucinations, making stuff up, if the answer is in the context window. From a computer science perspective, saying something is solved is a really big claim. Summarization is essentially a solved problem. Right? I am essentially making that claim on AI's side. So this is not, by the way, just about making you a better worker so that you can get more widgets created and your employer will be happy with you. This is, we all started off excited about learning at some point in our past, and for many of us, we have had that spark of curiosity snuffed out over our lives. By the way, I see lots of pictures coming out. Feel free to take pictures as you like. I'll even photobomb as much as I can. But these actual slides, I have the short link for the Google Slides presentation that I'm actually doing, that I'll share the link at the end, put it inside of Discord, all of that stuff. So don't worry about missing anything. So yes, this is also for learning things that are work-related and interesting to you and may be very beneficial for your current employer or future employer. But it's also just that life is full of interesting things. And it's fun to be able to dive in on any subject you want and have a pretty good pipeline to learning more about it. So we want to sample, delve, and absorb. I want you to be able to sample anything remotely interesting you come across, right? 10 to 100 times as much as you do right now. We'll talk about summarization for that. And for those topics that are of further interest to you, we'll talk about more deep dives. A personalized podcast just for you. A conversation with somebody incredibly aware of that subject area that you can go back and forth on, right? Because if people have done pair programming, if you sat next to somebody who's really damn good at a thing, you can learn really damn fast by doing so. We also have the more passive side, listening to podcasts, versus the more active side, having a conversation, going through labs, or frankly Q&A, where the AI is asking you to prove your knowledge and helping you learn just at the things that you're having trouble with. And then absorb, that kind of the pinnacle here. Some things, especially technical concepts, you really learn inside a lab, and there is no way to replace that lab time. So we'll talk about the absorption there as well, and a little bit on things like spaced repetition. So first up, sampling. All right? So someone shares a link with you. I love sharing Mark Morozinski's video from DEF CON 29, Blue Team Village on modern authentication, right? Kerberos is hard, Entra ID is hard, but it's probably not going away, right? On-prem Active Directory is going away in the exact same sense that IPv4 is going away in favor of IPv6. We're just going to have both forever. So you should probably learn both the on-prem and the cloudy world. But when you see the 45-minute video, when you see the hour-and-a-half-long video, you close the tab, right? Maybe you add it to your watch later queue that you'll never go through. You convince yourself that you'll do that? Let's talk about an efficient way to do this a bit better, right? Because I want you to sample broadly across anything in the world that is interesting to you. The Valve Employee Handbook is hilarious and awesome for many reasons, but I love they talked about T-shaped model for employees. You should be passingly familiar with essentially every specialty within your chosen area. And then you have at least one area you can dive real deep on. Right? I'm a bit of a generalist from an IT and IT security perspective, but if you want to talk about domain user to domain admin, that's probably one of my favorite niches within IT security. All right? And I could talk about most areas of IT, and I think that's a useful thing. Knowledge of every specialty within IT, within InfoSec, helps application in any area of IT of InfoSec. So let's talk about Fabric for the easy mode of sampling. I have here my local terminal. Move things over, because, all right. So if I saw that 45-minute video, that's kind of painful, all right? Here's the link. What if I wanted a good summary of it instead? YT, that URL, pipe to summarize. Wouldn't it be nice if in 5 to 15 seconds, I could get maybe a one-line takeaway, 5 major points, 10 actionable items from any YouTube URL, any content in the world? I think that would be a very useful thing. Hey, look, there's that thing. This is for anything you have a YouTube link for. This is easy mode. This is Fabric when installed. It's adding the aliases for YT and for summarize and for many other patterns we see in here as well. So for any area of life you find interesting, I think this is a good starting point to at least get a good summary in a format you're used to and say, is this worth diving into further? Much better than clicking a couple spots randomly in the talk, because you're not going to get a real feel for the talk at that point. So how do you get Fabric? What is Fabric? Fabric is by Daniel Miessler, and it's a command line thing for applying patterns to data. So if we look at the data inside of Fabric, we can see that it has the patterns directory, and each of those patterns I have added as a shortcut, as an alias inside of PowerShell locally, which is in the README of how to do so, by the way. So if I search for summarize, that's the name of a pattern that has a system prompt. And I'll talk about later about how to do this manually as well, because this is just a well-crafted prompt for any arbitrary data that comes after the input thing, the 10 most important points, the 5 best takeaways, and one single 20-word sentence in the one-sentence summary. But you could do this as well. Like, I could go to ChatGPT or what have you and plug this in just as well. I could take the transcript from the video. Here, I'll paste the prompt from GitHub, and then afterwards we have the input, because getting to the actual text is pretty darn important here. But good news, if you click on the description, click on Show Transcript, and get rid of timestamps, you can get the transcript of essentially every YouTube video. I'm going to use the magic of copy-paste, highlight Control-C, Alt-Tab, Control-V. And the response, after it probably goes through thinking harder for a better answer, will be the same idea as what we saw with Fabric. For good reason. It's doing the same thing. This is not magic. Even with AI, there is no magic. Understand what you're doing behind the scenes as you go through. And hey, look, we have the one-sentence summary, the main points, and the actionable takeaways. So you could do this yourself, of course, but it is nice for something that you do frequently to have a way to do that very fast, like that command, YT and summarize, sure is convenient. You have to plug in API keys for your Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT. You have to plug in an API key for YouTube, which is just have a YouTube account. It's not paid for all we're using it for, to grab the transcript, because the YT command is outputting the transcript to standard out. So we're using the normal command line piping to do this instead. Now this is an unreadable wall of text, but AI can make sense of that. It's not going to make stuff up, again, hallucinate, when the answer is in the context window. So let's get back to our actual discussion as well. Because you don't always have YouTube to work with. You don't always have highlight the transcript. I'll give you another example. Chrome DevTools is an amazing, amazing thing. I'll bring up, as an example, hi, I teach for SANS as well, and SANS webcasts, you can scroll through, but there is no download button here. So is this at night talk useful for you? I want you to be able to find the answer to that question very, very quickly. People make a big deal out of, well, there's a huge difference between streaming something versus downloading it. Your web browser is fundamentally accessing the video file through the power of Chrome DevTools, for the power of F12, right? I go to the network tab, and if I click anywhere within here, my web browser is fundamentally accessing an MP4 file. Right-click, copy as curl, Right-click, copy as curl is like the best feature of Chrome DevTools. What is the exact HTTPS request that your browser made to get this file, this snippet of the file in this case? So I will highlight, copy, and I'll go to WSL this time in my downloads folder and paste. Now, you'll notice a couple things. Of course, there's a big long URL because it has like keys and such inside, but I'd also like to bring your attention to the range parameter, because we don't want that. We don't want the snippet that we clicked on. We want the whole thing. If I don't have a range header, how much of the file will it be downloading? The whole damn thing. So highlight, remove, and I'll add -o and output and maybe like, there is no spoon.mp4. Now, this one would take a while, so I'll do the cooking show variant, because if I have learned one thing in doing demos at Wild West Hackin Fest, it's that you cannot rely upon reliable, fast internet as part of your demos. I've learned that lesson in prior years. So I already have there is no spoon.mp4 already downloaded, but it would grab it for you. Now, that doesn't by itself help you, because I have the video file. Sure, I can use VLC or whatever, but I don't have the text to work with. So there are many ways to do this. I've vibe coded speech-to-text.ty because there is no spoon.txt with the transcript of it, because my stt.py uses assembly AI and makes a .txt file for any video file after converting like to MP3 or libopus to be a bit more space efficient. But you can do that manually as well, right? There's assembly AI. There's the playground where you can select an audio file. Despite the name, by the way, you can upload a video file as well. There is no spoon.mp4 would slowly be downloading, and I'd see the transcript. There's also DeepGram, shout out for them as well. And they do give you $50 worth of credits when you first register, which is useful for like hundreds of hours of audio files, so I'm not super worried about burning through those credits. I've bought more, to be clear. That's because I've transcribed hundreds and thousands of hours through this for this pipeline. Because investing in yourself with $50 of API keys is money very well spent. And let's be honest, judging by the number of coffee cups out here from Starbucks, you've probably spent more on more frivolous things than $10 of API keys. Anyway, getting back to our actual presentation. So we have the speech-to-text, whether that's assembly AI or DeepGram or something you vibe coded yourself, and now you can go through the same pipeline. I'll demonstrate here with Fabric, but you could do it with whatever you CD downloads folder. Cat, there is no spoon.txt, pipe to summarize. The same idea, the same pipeline as the YouTube command, or highlighting and copying and pasting can work just fine as well. Right? Nothing magic about it. You can replace any one of these components with doing the thing manually. It's just that if you do it enough, it might be worth investing in a little bit of automation for it as well. All right? So hey, look, this is what that talk was about. There are 10 main points and 5 actionable takeaways. If you are intrigued by that, then we can go further in the pipeline. And it's okay if you're not. There is more content out there than you can ever watch or read. That's okay. We need to find a way to find the things that are more interesting for your human limited time. That's the point of this talk. So, there's the webcast. I have the pictures in here as well for the sake of future you looking through these slides, right? Because there's no download button there, but Chrome DevTools works just fine. And I have the instructions here for future you going through this recording or going through the slides as well. Remove the range header, add the dash output file. Though I do, of course, this exact presentation is recorded and will be on the Wild West Hackin Fest site. And I'm also wearing a separate microphone and recording locally, and we'll have an MP4 file on the last slide by the end of this presentation. I'll take care of you, don't worry. Anyway, let's continue on. If you have that big old file, the thereisnospoon.mp4, you may have noticed that it's a longer file because there is like 15 minutes of setup at the beginning because they started it early. There's a lot of silent portions. You may have work calls where they took a lunch and kept the video going the entire time. Trimming down the silent portion is a useful use of your time as well, and there's a great tool for that. Auto Editor uses FFmpeg. You can do many things, but the basic usage is as simple as Auto Editor, thereisnospoon.mp4, which will read through the file once finding the silent portions, and then make a new MP4 file that has stripped out those silent portions. That's it. So you go from 1 hour and 16 minutes to 43 minutes or so, and that's worth the time of you running that command, right? So it extracts the audio and then makes the new video file, which does re-render, so it'll take a bit. So I'll press Control-C for the sake of, you end up with a new video file _altered that works great. But wait, there's more. I think that learning to listen at greater than 1x speed is a skill that you should develop. Right now, you parsing my human speech, especially if I get excited, is taking more and more of your brain power just to parse the speech and convert to text internally inside of your head. But if you start working on the muscle of processing human speech at greater than 1x speed, that means less of your brain power is focused on parsing the actual words that people are saying, and more can be focused on your next response. It can be focused on other things in life, other distractions. And it means you can get through more content in the same amount of time. So I feel a lot less guilty for playing video games on flights if I'm also listening to podcasts at 2x speed, right? Because I'm still learning at that increased rate, especially if you get rid of the silent portion. So 1 hour and 60 minutes went to 45 by trimming the silence, went to 30 minutes, 15 minutes at 3x speed. So we're compressing things down pretty well, and that's useful to do. Now, let's talk next about going further into delving, right? Delving efficiently. You have some passive time in your life that you could use for learning. Anybody enjoy listening to podcasts? Anybody have a long commute to work? All right, a good number of hands, maybe 30% of hands were raised just now. Wouldn't it be awesome to have an easy way to have a podcast on anything in the world you're interested in? Exactly the topics that you want to load? NotebookLM is so freaking amazing in terms of it looks like you're peering into the future with what comes out of it. So I have the tabs open into NotebookLM where I have loaded the YouTube video directly, but I also added deep research. Hey, here's the transcript. Here's the text file from YouTube. You can highlight, copy, and paste as well. And please deeply research these topics. And the report that was generated was on the order of, I think it actually says the number of sources that it used somewhere in here. Sites used in the research. Anyway, it's like 400 plus sites used for it. Similar idea for Claude. If I opened that one, I think it was 520 different sites used for more research on that area because Mark Morzinski is awesome, but he did not cover everything of that topic there. So I can give that extra context, like fill in the blanks, if you will, for that topic and feed that into NotebookLM somewhere around here. with where I am right now. So I have the Gemini Deep Research and the Claude Deep Research. Claude Deep Research wants to give you Markdown, so copy and paste it, and Gemini wants to give you a Google Doc that you can import into NotebookLM because Google talks to Google just fine. So now I can click a very fancy button, Audio Overview. Audio Overview is make a compelling podcast between two guests on this exact topic. And you can customize as well, by the way, with the little pencil icon. Do you want it to be a deep dive? Do you want it to be shorter or default or longer? Do you want it to be a debate? Do you want it to be a critique of your own stuff? This is really compelling. It does take a while to make, but I'll give a quick example here of the first one I made, which is the default time frame. And I think
Welcome
my
back
audio
to
is
the
going
deep
through.
dive.
So
Today, we are really getting into the absolute core of modern security identity protocols.
That's right.
AML level, OAuth 2, OpenID Connect. These aren't just, complex terms anymore.
This is I'm pausing here. This is a 20-minute summary of that, and of course you can use this as your player directly, but if you're already listening to podcasts, you can also load it into your podcast player of choice. You do you. I'm not saying this is the end-all be-all. I personally use Pocket Cast, and their paid plan at like $60 a year or something allows you to upload your own arbitrary files, because there's a download button here that I could download the M4A file, upload to Pocket Cast, and now anytime from any device on your commute, etc., you can load that podcast. If you want to go a little bit further, the long form one of it, I think, was a 51-minute player instead. So I can play that. I can also change the playback speed inside of
This is where we take those really
NotebookLM.
complex, dense technical sources and, boil them down into the knowledge you actually need.
The stuff you can use day to day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And our mission today.
Now that's really fast at 2.5x speed. I will say that your ability to process speech at greater than 1x also depends upon the fidelity, and there's a lot of echo and such going on here. So start at 1.25, 1.5, and just slowly work your way up. It depends on how fast the person is talking, etc. But please keep working on that muscle. So you're learning new things and learning how to process speech at greater than 1x speed on topics that are interesting to you anyway. And by the way, inside of NotebookLM, you also have the option to go interactive. You join the podcast at the end with the same speakers, because passive absorption is great. And sometimes you don't have the bandwidth mentally to do more than just listen, and maybe you'll pick some stuff out of it. But seeing the same information in multiple ways, multiple methods of processing, some people draw their talks as they go, and it helps them to cement their ideas. Some people want to listen passively. Some people would love to have a Q&A afterwards. So any arbitrary talk you want in the world, take the YouTube video, take some deep research, and go in interactive. And it's somewhat like talking to that expert right then, because they have all of the talk and all of the deep research in their context window, if you will, and you're talking to experts on that subject. So on your commute, don't look at your phone and drive, but you can click the Go Interactive button and have a conversation with experts on any topic in the world on your way to work. You can probably safely talk and drive at the same time. All right, please don't look at your phone as you drive. All right, PSA over. All right, so now you can load that information into your podcast player. That's more for the passive time. So also add that deep research. Here it was 491 sources. Notice I said Gemini and Claude here, by the way. ChatGPT was the first to have this deep research idea. There's, of course, more to the quality of the report than the number of sources, but often ChatGPT research is like 10 or 15 websites they used, or 5 to 15, whereas it's 300 to 500 for Claude and Gemini. There's probably going to be more good information. If you see the same fact repeated over 4 different sources, I start to trust it pretty well. All right. Now, there's also study mode in both ChatGPT and Gemini more recently. So instead of focusing on answer this homework question for me, it's, hey, here's the context, here's the deep research, here's the transcript. I don't quite understand this thing. How can I learn a little bit more for it? So it's essentially changing the system prompt behind the scenes, but now it could quiz you. And by the way, you can still turn on voice mode for this if you like. So now we have it inside of NotebookLM. We also have it inside of ChatGPT and Gemini on your way. It's okay to pick a favorite, but of course AI is moving quickly, so periodically test the other things and find what's working best for you. I'm giving you my personal opinions here, but whatever works best for you. People talk about benchmarks for AI. The best benchmark is the one that solves your problems. And whatever AI does best on that benchmark that is not going to be gamed is going to be the good one for you to use. Right? So study mode is fantastic. We can actually see a little bit of it here with Gemini because I said, hey, after I've done that, I turned on study mode, like right down here. Guided learning is what Gemini calls it. Say, hey, I want to test my knowledge. Okay, open the quiz. Multiple choice questions. Are they going to be perfect as well as handcrafted? I mean, maybe, because I've seen some crappy questions that have been handcrafted. But it's at least quizzing you, and you have hints all the way through. So an application needs to log in using Google account. So probably not Kerberos, the on-prem thing. Maybe OAuth, maybe OIDC, or whatever. Hey, look, I got it right. Sweet. But if you don't have it right, it's cross-site scripting. No, not quite. Here's the explanation. Here's the right answer. Turns out our ability to learn is really well enhanced when you are challenged to produce the answers as well. There are actual studies on it that taking the test over and over is sometimes a far more effective study method than just studying, like going through the book yourself. The retention is better when you're forced to recall it as well. All right, absorbing, going a little bit more in depth. You need to have a home lab in your life to be a better person in IT and InfoSec. Some lessons need to be absorbed by having the actual tech yourself. I am completely biased towards that. I have a whole other talk on that with a whole other recording available. Please build a home lab. Please learn to program. And programming has fundamentally changed with AI because now you have unlimited coding experts that are happy to help you along and help you learn as well. But for the record, when you get commit, you're doing that under your own name, and you need, just like an engineer, even if somebody created the plans, when you stamp it, that's your name on it. When you git commit, that's your name on it as well. But PSA aside, please build a home lab. All right, when you learn things, most of them will be forgotten over time, right? The slope changes based on what it is, how well you learned it. And I think for a lot of things in life, that's okay. There is more to know than can ever be known, and relearning things, yes, will be more efficient than learning the first time, but maybe you're not as interested in things that you're not using. That's okay. What level of math did you make it to in high school and college? What level of math are you confident in right now? That's okay to some extent, right? So there's all sorts of different levels of amount of memory, like free recall. You can, of course, think of it freely without having to be prompted versus cued versus, oh, I can't quite remember, it's on the tip of my tongue, etc. So you'd go down one rung at a time unless you do things like spaced repetition. So it might be you did the deep research, you listened to the podcast, then you took the test, the guided quiz, in a short amount of active time. And then later on, you say, hey, I want to go one-on-one via voice, and I think I've forgotten some of this area. Please quiz and explain to me. So we have 3 different forms: passive listening versus taking a multiple choice quiz versus having a conversation about it. We're making this easy. We're making this low key. We're not making stuff up because the answer is in the context window, and hallucinations are generally not a problem if the answer is in the context window. All right? So, by the way, I think you should be able to get lab time at work to continue your learning. I am not saying this is all on your own time. The things that are interesting to you, maybe it's, I don't know, learning about the, 6 wives of King Henry VIII. I did a NotebookLM podcast for that. It was great. But you're probably not going to get work time for that. But if I say, hey, boss, I'd like to do a lab thing for Friday afternoon instead of my normal work, you have not given your boss a reason to say yes, and you are taking away work time, so they will say no. Give your boss a reason to say yes. I gave the example of laps here because every company with AD should be using laps. But, hey, I've been researching this on my own time a little bit, deep research, NotebookLM podcast, etc., and maybe I did my own lab. And look, implementing the first time Admins can vouch for me. I don't know which option to click during the install, etc. Whereas if it's the second or third time doing a thing, if you have your own personal lab and you have your individual lab at work and you have a shared lab amongst admins at work, and it's the third time you implement it is in the one in production, you're going to be much better off. So, hey, Laps has benefits to us, boss. Can I learn about it in a lab environment before I propose next week of how to do it for us? You're giving them a reason to say yes because it has a good chance of massively slowing down the breakout time of attackers that gain initial access, because compromise is inevitable. Initial access is inevitable, but breaches are not. So we should probably slow down attackers. We should probably detect them. That was last year or year before's talk. I can share some links at the end as well. All right? So again, testing beats rereading. Doing the same thing the same way has some marginal improvements for your retention, but going over the same information in multiple ways, right? Passively listen to a podcast versus guided multiple choice versus having a conversation with an expert in AI in voice mode works just fine as well. Making flashcards, that's also one of the built-in things of NotebookLM is make flashcards there for your ongoing learning. There's even the mind map that you can create, and for everything you click on that you don't quite understand, it generates a summary of just that one topic. So NotebookLM per major topic you're interested in is a nice way to do things, right? Hey, it did make it in time. So now I can click on it and say, oh, advanced threat vectors, you say, golden SAML attacks. I could go drill down further, but I can also click on golden SAML and get a description of just that one thing for me, right? So behind the scenes, Gemini is taking all of the context that it has, pulling out information on golden SAML, and giving you an explanation just on that. So imagine you came up after the talk and said, hey, Jeff, you said something about fabric. Can I learn more about that thing? Sure, here's your explanation. And you have that for any topic you're interested in the world. We're not using AI to replace you. We're using AI to invest in yourself for the rest of your career. Because the things that you learn will help you for the rest of your life as well as for the rest of your career. So keep learning. All right. I love the automation. I love YT, pipe to summarize, etc. But remember, this can all be done manually. There are plenty of speech text out there. Summarize, good prompts that we trade like Pokemon cards. That's fine. Knowing that some tool may be broken. Fun fact, the last time I did a little preview of this, the YT command broke because YT DLP broke because YouTube changed how they work. So you had to work around it for a little while. Maybe it's highlighting the transcript inside of youtube.com. But if you know how your tools work, then you don't need the tools anymore. The tools are just a convenience factor, and any one part can be swapped out. Please understand the parts. That's why I demoed chatgpt.com and paste the prompt and paste the information. So a brief thing on more with AI here. We're getting more into, instead of just prompt engineering, there's more than just the user prompt inside of AI. There is the RAG, there are the tools that are available, there is the deep research that you're plugging in. Generally, if I asked for 50 restaurants to go to inside of Deadwood, I'm sorry, but all AIs would start making stuff up. Because they don't have the answer in their training data, but they're literally designed to make the least surprising next word. They are literally trained to lie convincingly, and it should model after the training data if it exists for that. So there's more to just the prompt. That's why I talk about adding the deep research prompts as well. So we have the goal, we have the exact format. Again, you can see some really good examples here with things like Daniel Miessler's fabric, and we have many of the different patterns inside. These are not perfect, they're not magical, but I don't know, analyze a bit of malware. What's a good starting point for a prompt on that? Click inside. There's your identity. Here are the steps. One sentence summary, extract the information, output instructions, and there's the input afterwards. It's a good format to work with. I love adding in, like, how much of the deep research that I've done have I actually read through the actual report? It's a smaller and smaller percentage. Mostly, I'm adding it to other context windows. I'm adding it to NotebookLM. I'm adding it as background for my quizzes thereafter. It's filling in the blanks from limited source material with more factual stuff as opposed to the original training data, which is another way to say often making stuff up, right? We want to avoid that. So few-shot prompting is another wonderful example, as opposed to give me JSON formatted output for this input. It's gonna make up the key names, right? Give me the sentiment analysis. It's gonna make the terms up. If you've gathered a few examples of what you're looking for, give those examples in your prompt itself. This is not for the ad hoc one-time queries. This is for things that you find yourself repeatedly doing. Add some good examples into your prompt itself that you keep in your back pocket that you can apply going forward. If nothing else, few-shot prompting is, most companies should not be doing fine-tuning. Most companies should have their 3 to 10 examples of here's what we're looking for, here's the few-shot prompting, and including that, because that way you can use any model whatsoever. You can test more frequently, which means you can move to whatever is best for your use case. Few-shot prompting is great. Now, going back to the learning side, as much as I like to talk about here's how to learn faster, I only have 2 variables to work with. How much time are you spending learning, and how good are those hours that you're learning? I can help you with the effectiveness of that learning with the stuff we've discussed, but you could also probably get some more hours in there. Talking about adding the hours of your commute that you might be listening to other podcasts, and still blend those in, by the way. I'm not saying replace them, right? Keep your other learning in here, but as you're doing dishes, wouldn't it be kind of cool to have earbuds in and have something that's interesting to you on a topic, or have a conversation about, I don't understand scoped memory control in Rust. Give me some more explanation on that so I can internalize it. Give me some good analogies on things. Things that you're having a difficult time explaining to coworkers, explain the problem you're having, have it try to convince you, and bring up the same arguments. Have that conversation. Please learn in labs, don't just learn in production. The first time you install any tool should not be in production. All right, so putting together. I want you to sample a lot more than you do before, and you will discard the vast majority of that, and that's completely fine, right? So as an example, on a weekly basis, you come across things over the week that are interesting to you. Somebody gives you that video link. You have going finally through your watch later queue that you never were going to before, getting summaries and saying, yes, this is worthy of further investigation, or no, this is not. So pick some to listen to, right? Maybe in full. Probably at greater than 1x speed, so you can get 2 things going at once. Listen to those in full. Maybe listen to via NotebookLM, things that are interesting to you as well, because that way it's going to be smaller than the original content and still be compelling. Right? Test your learning against something. Maybe some flashcards at the end of the day or the beginning of the day, just as your little habit as you get to work. The first half hour, I'm going to quiz myself. The first 10 minutes, the first 5 minutes. The point is a little bit of repetition and challenging yourself, because that will make it stick better as well. And then pick one thing, maybe once a week. If you can convince your boss that you will continue your learning and be able to share it with others and improve more at work, you can get that work time as well. And then please, for the sake of the industry, share it with others. Have a blog, because that is one more way you can cement the ideas as you explain it to others as well. And look, a static website hosted with GitHub for free that works in the entire world is a good way to do that, but that's not our topic right now. All right, so yes, you have some amount of learning right now. Maybe you listen to a podcast, maybe some are InfoSec related, and maybe you are given a little bit of training, maybe you went to a conference that you had some great learning, so you have a couple of days, a couple of times a year, but I would love for you to add in a little bit of passive learning over the weekend, maybe blocking out some active time during the work week with permission, right? Don't surprise your boss this way. But here's the actionable learning objective. Here's how it can help us at work. And I'm asking for the few hours of downtime that otherwise I'd just be browsing Reddit. I mean, working on our backlog of Jira tickets. I will instead learn this thing and present it to the rest of our team later. It's much easier to justify. I'm a big fan of the author, Brandon Sanderson. It took him a couple books to finally get through this. But he said, the most important step you can ever take in your life is the next one. It's always the next step. Lots of journeys are many steps away. Just keep walking. What is your next step for learning right now? right? What can you do next? What is your actionable takeaway? And is it, hi, I'm Jeff. I guess I won't gloss over this page this time. This is the second to last slide. It's just questions afterwards. Hi, I'm a consultant. I generalize a fair bit, but I have a few specialties that I really like. I also teach for SANS and author SANS Security 560 and 580. And I like to help companies understand realistic business risks and reduce them wherever possible. There's email and the Twitter. I refuse to type X. Anyway, these exact slides are online, bit.ly/learningwithai. I've also talked at Wild West Hackin Fest in a number of previous years, and the short links for all of those talks, the vast majority of which have their YouTube links in the presentation itself, are there as well. If you want to, it's not like an official thing, but Leslie Carhart, my internet auntie, is a wonderful, wonderful human, and they do wonderful mentoring sessions and resume workshops and such, but they can only work so far. So I'm also willing to do that for you. It's not a paid thing. I'm not trying to gather contacts. I just think that if you want to learn more, if you want to work on your resume, if you want to find out where you need to learn next, how to interview better, I'm happy to chat. There's the link directly to my Calendly as well. I have the ability to do these hours, and I'd rather be able to help people like you, wonderful audience members. And I apologize if I hadn't had Discord open this entire time. Oh wait, so I've only had one thumbs up inside of Discord, inside of track 1. So instead, I'll ask some live questions here. Any questions in the audience? Yes. Great question. The question is on locally hosted models instead of the online ones. Yes. The one that I mentioned of Fabric can work against essentially any model, including locally hosted ones, including Ollama, including LM Studio, etc. So if you want to run like the GPT OSS 20 billion, you can essentially give the Hugging Face link and use it with Fabric just fine, or Ollama, or LM Studio. Generally, they're all making OpenAI compatible or Anthropic compatible APIs. You can even use Claude Code as an example with other hosted models by giving the other URL, and it's actually using a different model behind the scenes. So yes, this entire workflow works that way as well. I would encourage you to at least periodically check on what online hosted frontier models are doing. If local is working for your use case, that's absolutely fine. But check in, because life is moving quickly, every 2 or 3 months for non-sensitive stuff. What are the online frontier models doing as well? Great question. Yes, in the back. Nope. NotebookLM, does it have a free tier? I'm used to it with your Google account. I believe it has a free tier, but I don't know. NotebookLM pricing. I can Google it live. Free tier. The NotebookLM paid plus. If you already pay for storage on your Google account because you've done too many images over time, you also get NotebookLM for free. I haven't explicitly paid for it because I've been playing with other things instead. I am using the paid tier because it's what I already had, because I was already paying for storage because I take too many photos. Thank you, Link Guy. Playing along as I watch. Great talk. Okay. Any questions inside of Discord or any questions in person? Yes, up front. Interesting. So the question is on not researching a topic, but researching an opinion and pros and cons. And I have not experimented in that exact way, but I will bring it back to NotebookLM. This is tangential to your question, I understand that. But remember, you have critique or debate between different perspectives. So you could add deep research on that area and then listen to the podcast of the debate pros and cons for that topic as well. Yeah. If nothing else, please try NotebookLM podcast, because the text-to-speech and the talking over each other a little bit, it does feel like two damn intelligent humans conversing on any topic in the world you're interested in. Other questions? Griffin InfoSec inside of Discord posted to Open Notebook. as the attempt to be an open alternative. The nice thing is it's open and free, and you can do it yourself with the text-to-speech. The extra magic above and beyond raw text-to-speech that Google does for NotebookLM is quite compelling. I have no objection to trying Open Notebook, but I want you to try NotebookLM as well to compare, because so far, to me, the quality has been a step change improved. Yes? The question is, for Fabric, can I build my own prompts? And yes, you can customize your own prompts. It downloads to a local directory. You could add to it. You could also have your own clone of the repo with the prompts that you add to and collect like Pokemon cards or Magic the Gathering cards over time as well. So yes, you can change it. And if nothing else, you can make a new folder and make a couple of files inside, and that works just fine as well. So yes. Yes? Great point. Any student account for Google One, which is free, essentially, if you have connived access to a .edu email address, you get NotebookLM paid for free. Yes, great point, thank you. Does Microsoft have anything comparable to NotebookLM is the question? Okay. Microsoft is real good at partnering with OpenAI for the sake of Copilot. I will say, like, the Phi series of models are pretty damn good for what they're doing. The new GPT-OSS model used for local inferencing, that is the dude who made the PHI models over at OpenAI moving to Microsoft. So it's essentially moving over to OpenAI for the sake of making the GPT-OSS. So they do all right. They're not frontier. There's a lot of companies trying real hard right now. Notice I'm not mentioning Mistral. Sorry. They were doing great like a year and a half ago, but keeping up with the frontier is real hard. Things move real fast. Life comes at you fast, as they say. Other questions? I have at least 3 more minutes before they start getting nervous and start pulling me off stage. Yes? I have played around with RAG, and I love Simon W.'s LLM for doing so. This is getting beyond what I can get to too much in this time frame, but LLM is another local command line thing for LLM stuff. So you could replace Fabric in that sense with LLM, and here's the prompt itself, but Simon W.'s LLM also has it's not text transformers, but LLM, is it just with RAG? Oh, let me add Simon W. in there. Here we go. He also blogs more than about anyone in the world. So I have a whole pipeline with taking arbitrary text, chunking it up into small bite-sized windows using LLM locally, and then using Claude Code, which can run local commands to run queries against like prior transcripts I'm interested in, like my prior classes, to help me come up with ideas for an area based on the things that I've talked about at prior presentations. So I know this is just a pointer and not an answer to your question, but I love the ease of Simon W.'s RAG that he has a little bit more on in here. I'll see if I can find more. If you follow up with me on Discord or what have you, and I'll send you a bit more if you're curious. Other questions? I got time for at least 1 more, maybe 2, before they start to get nervous. Yes? Hi. What's my favorite animal? The raccoon, of course, is the best of animals. It seems like a fitting, oh, yes. Do I listen on 3x or 4x speed? It depends on the podcast. I struggle. If it's something on YouTube where I have the subtitles on, I will do 4x speed if it's something that I would otherwise feel guilty about spending my time on, because at least I'm training the muscle, even if I'm not training my learning. But generally, if I'm only listening to the audio, like going on a walk, then generally with high quality audio, not on a plane where there's lots of background noise or in a conference area, 2.5 to 3.25 is the range, depending on the speaker audience. Do I use an extension for that? No, I'll usually be using Pocket Cast, which has their little player down here. Yep. Their little speed right down here that you can do arbitrarily. Or YouTube with YouTube Premium, I think it is technically, allows more than 1x speed. So we have, this is what the screenshot was from before. It actually goes up to 4x speed just with YouTube itself. They actually re-render all the things for doing so. So there is no step change. There is no 3.25. There's 3 and 3.5 for that. Other questions? All right. Then I said I was recording. I will now stop the recording, and there will be a MP4 file linked to my Dropbox on the question slide momentarily once it uploads to Dropbox. So this exact talk I have the separate microphone as well, and of course our wonderful hosts who I love at Wild West Hackin Fest will also get this on YouTube in due time. But nice to have backups. All right, if there are no other questions, then thank you and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Cheers.